I want to sleep with my ex and have a baby for him. If you're not comfortable with that, get out from my life, you dog. The words hit Daniel so fast, so violently, that for a moment he genuinely wondered if he misheard her. But Rachel didn't repeat herself. She didn't stutter. She didn't show a flicker of hesitation. She just kept packing, yanking clothes from drawers and tossing them into the half-opened suitcase like she was late for a flight to somewhere better, richer, louder than the quiet home they had built together. It wasn't the kind of sentence a spouse said in a moment of anger. It was too sharp, too polished, too rehearsed. She had been waiting to say this. Daniel stood frozen in the doorway of their bedroom, still holding the mug of coffee he had walked in with, steam curling up between them, fading fast. His pulse hammered so hard in his ears, he barely heard the thud of drawers slamming or the aggressive rustling of fabric as Rachel worked with the efficiency of someone who had made up her mind long before this moment. "You heard me?" she snapped without looking at him, her voice slicing cleanly through the suffocating silence. "I deserve a real man, one who actually wants to build a future with me, one who can give me a child without making excuses." She finally turned toward him, her expression cold, confident, condescending. Her eyes held not a single drop of guilt. "The man I should have been with all along is ready," she said, chin lifted with pride. "He wants a baby with me, a life with me, something you clearly could never give." Daniel's breath caught. Infertility? They had talked about that months ago. She had cried, blamed him, pushed him into a quiet shame he still carried every day. The memory stabbed him now, but Rachel had already moved on, her tone shifting from cruel to businesslike. "So let's not drag this out," she continued, pulling her hair into a tight ponytail as if she were simply preparing for a workout. "My lawyer already told me how this is going to go. The house stays with me. The savings stay with me. The new contract you got? Yeah, half of that is mine too." She flashed a triumphant smirk. "You might as well start packing your things. Leave the keys. And don't try to fight this. I'll bury you in court. I already know your financials better than you do." There was no disbelief left in Daniel, only a quiet, cold stillness. His hands tightened around the mug. He didn't shout, didn't argue, didn't beg. He simply watched her, observing the little details. How her hands trembled with adrenaline. How her voice cracked with excitement more than anger. How she kept glancing at her phone, waiting for a message from the man she was leaving him for. Rachel noticed the silence and took it as a sign of weakness. She rolled her eyes dramatically. There it is, the quiet suffering act. Pathetic. You can't even defend yourself. She swept past him, brushing his shoulder roughly as she pushed her way into the hallway. He followed slowly, still unable to process the sharpness of every word she had thrown at him. But the next blow came even harder. "Oh, and about those fertility tests," she called out over her shoulder. "Don't flatter yourself. There's nothing wrong with me. He told me not to get pregnant with your child. Didn't want the deadweight husband situation." She turned, smiled sweetly, and added, "I agreed. It wasn't just betrayal. It wasn't just an affair. It was humiliation crafted with precision." Daniel finally found his voice, though it came out low, trembling slightly. "So all of this, all these months of distance, all the fights, it was him?" Rachel scoffed. "Not everything is about him. You were boring long before he came back into my life." She walked into the living room and picked up a stack of legal papers from the coffee table. "These are my lawyer's recommendations. File them today so we don't waste time. I want this done before the baby comes." He blinked. "You're all ready?" "No," she cut in sharply. "But I will be. Don't worry about that." The disgust in her voice was unmistakable. She motioned toward the front door. "You should leave first. I'm keeping the house. My lawyer said possession matters, and you're not stable enough to stay here right now. And if you refuse, I swear to God, I'll call the police and tell them you're threatening me." "Who do you think they'll believe?" Daniel stared at her, really stared, seeing her fully for the first time. The harsh lines of entitlement around her mouth, the gleam of ambition in her eyes, the thrill she got from tearing him apart piece by piece. She believed she had already won. She believed she owned him. But as she turned around to toss clothes across the couch, something slipped out of her handbag, a thick folder with papers sticking out. Her foot kicked it accidentally, spilling its contents across the floor. Daniel's eyes drifted down. Loan applications, credit cards, contracts bearing his signature. Except, he never signed any of these. Rachel didn't notice. She was too busy texting her ex, smiling at her phone like a teenager in love. But Daniel noticed. Every page, every forged initial, every date. The heat that had burned in his chest moments earlier cooled into something sharper, cleaner, colder. His breathing steadied. His posture straightened. His heartbeat slowed. Rachel thought she had just crushed him. She had no idea. She had just given him the weapon he needed to destroy her. He bent slowly, quietly picking up the papers as a small, controlled smile formed at the corner of his mouth. The kind of smile Rachel had never seen before. The kind of smile that said, "Checkmate is coming, and you don't even know you're losing." He stood up, folder in hand, and Rachel finally glanced back at him, annoyed. "What now?" she snapped. Daniel didn't answer. He simply walked past her out the front door and down the driveway. Not defeated, not broken, not shattered. Preparing, planning, becoming something Rachel never expected. A man who wasn't going to lose. A man who wasn't going to beg. A man who would make her regret every word she said today. And the story was only just beginning. Daniel didn't break down. He didn't scream in the car. He didn't even cry. Instead, he whispered to himself, calmly, eerily, like a man waking up from a long, suffocating dream. "She thinks I'm weak. Good." That single thought became the spark, the ignition, the first breath of a revenge that would come dressed in silence and precision. It was the moment everything inside him shifted, not into anger, but into clarity. He sat in the driver's seat of his car, hands gripping the steering wheel, chest tight but mind razor-sharp. His phone buzzed on the dashboard, a notification from his bank. He opened it. Asterisk declined transaction, $2,400. Suspicious activity detected. Asterisk. Another buzz. New credit line opened in your name. Then another. Furniture purchase. $1,890. His breath caught. These were not his expenses. He never opened a new credit line. He never bought any furniture. And then it clicked. The folder. The signatures. The forged initials on the papers Rachel dropped. It wasn't just betrayal. It was fraud. And in that moment of brutal realization, the story of a devastated husband ended, and the story of a man planning a nuclear-level, legally immaculate revenge began. He drove straight to the one person he knew would understand the language of evidence, signatures, digital trails, and law, Attorney Morgan Shaw. When he walked into her office, he didn't look like a man who had been emotionally gutted. He looked like someone who had tasted betrayal and decided it was the last bitter thing he would ever swallow. Morgan was in her late 40s, sharp-eyed, silver-streaked hair pulled back, and a presence that demanded truth. No coddling, no pity, only solutions. "What happened?" she asked, not with softness, but with professional curiosity. A battlefield general diagnosing a fresh wound. Daniel placed the folder on her desk and said the 4 words that flipped the power dynamic. "My wife forged these." Morgan's expression didn't change, but her eyes sharpened with interest. She flipped through the pages slowly, like a surgeon examining x-rays before an operation. "Unauthorized credit applications," she murmured, her handwriting pretending to be yours. "Loan signatures forged. Multiple accounts opened without spousal consent. And these dates? They're recent." She kept flipping. "And these credit lines, this is identity theft." She looked up. "Daniel." She committed federal and state fraud. Those words hit harder than any insult Rachel had thrown. But this time it wasn't pain. It was power. Daniel told Morgan everything. Rachel's confession about wanting a baby with her ex, the threats, the insults, the lawyer she claimed to have, the promise that she would take half of everything while he leaves with nothing. Morgan didn't blink. "She's not smart," she said. "She's arrogant. Arrogant people are predictable. And predictable people always leave evidence." Daniel exhaled shakily, feeling something in his chest loosen for the first time all day. Morgan leaned forward. "How long has she been cheating?" "A year, maybe more." "Did she access your email?" "She did," he said. "I have logs." "Did she make decisions about money behind your back?" "Yes." "Did you sign anything together for those loans?" "No." Morgan sat back, calculating. He felt the air in the room shift. "You're safer than you think," she said. "Most of your assets are insulated, because your house is owned by a premarital trust. She can't touch it. She's banking on the court assuming you're ignorant and cooperative. She said she'd bury me." Morgan almost laughed. "She can't. Not legally. Not financially. And not with the evidence she left lying around like a child dropping crumbs." Daniel felt something tug at his throat, a mix of relief and humiliation and barely controlled rage. Morgan continued, "She impersonated you. That alone can get her fined, charged, and stripped of any financial entitlement. And if she files for spousal support while committing fraud, the judge won't just deny her, he'll penalize her." Daniel closed his eyes. He hadn't realized how badly he needed to hear that. Morgan stood, walked to the whiteboard on the wall, and began writing out the beginning of the plan, though it felt less like legal strategy and more like a tactical military operation. Step 1 * gather all financial records. Step 2 * pull credit reports. Step 3 * document every fraudulent action. Step 4 * use adultery as leverage. Step 5 * use identity theft as the knockout. Step 6 * counterfile before she files. Step 7 * reveal trust-protected home at the exact right moment. Step 8 * present the case in court after she overplays her hand. Daniel stared. This wasn't just defense. It was checkmate. Morgan turned to him. "You need to stay silent. Let her think she's ahead. Arrogance will make her sloppy." He nodded. "And Daniel?" "Yes. Do not move out of your home. That's what she wants. Possession only matters if you surrender it voluntarily." Another buzz from his phone. Another bank alert. Another fraudulent purchase. He handed the phone to Morgan. She smiled. Not kindly, but like a wolf who just scented the perfect opening. "Oh, this is good," she said. "She's still committing the crimes. Every charge timestamps her deception." Daniel felt a shiver slide down his spine. For the first time all day, he wasn't drowning. He was rising. Later, after leaving Morgan's office, he stopped at a small cafe. That's where he unexpectedly ran into Elise, the accountant he once worked with years ago. She noticed his swollen eyes and forced composure instantly. "Daniel? Are you okay?" For a moment, he almost broke, but he swallowed it. "I'm going to be," he said. And for the first time, he actually believed it. His phone buzzed again, this time from Morgan. "Daniel, I found something in her bank logs. Something big. Call me now." He stared at the message. Whatever Rachel thought she was building was already collapsing from the inside. And tomorrow, the revenge plan would officially begin. Rachel strutted into the courtroom like she was walking into a victory celebration, not a legal proceeding. Her heels clicked across the polished floor with smug finality. Her chin lifted high, her ex swaggering behind her like a discount celebrity with delusions of importance. She didn't even glance at Daniel as she passed. But the brutal hook came the moment she opened her mouth. Loud enough for everyone in the hallway to hear. "By lunchtime, I'll be the owner of his house and half his income, and he'll finally be out of my life for good." Her ex snorted in agreement. Daniel heard it all. He didn't react. That's what scared her, though she didn't know it yet. Inside the courtroom, Rachel sat with the confidence of a woman who believed she had already won, crossing her legs dramatically, whispering to her ex, flipping her hair. Her attorney, a loud, arrogant man who specialized in fear tactics, smirked at Daniel like he was prey. Daniel sat still, silent, hands folded neatly, as if this entire day meant nothing. Attorney Morgan Shaw sat beside him, posture straight, eyes unreadable, her expression calm in a way that said she already knew the ending of this story. The judge entered. People rose. Rachel flashed a victorious smile at Daniel. One last act of gloating before she thought the feast would begin. Her attorney started immediately, booming his way through the courtroom with rehearsed indignation. Your Honor, my client has suffered tremendous emotional distress during her marriage to Mr. Bennett. She carried all emotional responsibilities while he contributed nothing but financial control. She requests 50% of the marital assets, exclusive rights to the marital home, spousal support, and reimbursement for the emotional damages inflicted by his neglect. Rachel nodded dramatically, wiping away a fake tear. Her ex squeezed her knee reassuringly. Her attorney continued with confidence dripping from every word. And given Mrs. Bennett's desire to start a family, something Mr. Bennett could not provide, we believe she deserves the stability of home ownership. Daniel's jaw tightened at that knife twist, but he didn't react. Let them dig deeper. Let them choke on their own arrogance. When the attorney finished, he sat down with a satisfied smirk, confident he'd just handed Rachel half of Daniel's life wrapped in a legal bow. The judge turned to Morgan. Ms. Shaw, your response? Morgan didn't stand right away. She let the silence sit thick in the air, the kind of silence that made Rachel's smile twitch. Then Morgan rose, smoothing her suit jacket. Her voice was calm, clinical, lethal. Your Honor, she began. Before we address marital assets, I would like to address criminal activity. Rachel's head snapped toward her. Criminal? The judge raised an eyebrow. Proceed. Morgan lifted a folder. The asterisk folder Daniel had picked up off the floor the day Rachel didn't even notice. In this file, Morgan said, opening it with controlled precision, are multiple credit lines opened without Mr. Bennett's consent, all bearing his forged signature, all traced to Mrs. Bennett's IP address and device. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Rachel's attorney bolted upright. Objection! The judge cut him off. Sit down. I want to hear this. Morgan pulled out the next exhibit. Here are bank statements showing unauthorized transfers from Mr. Bennett's accounts to a second, hidden account belonging to Mrs. Bennett. Rachel froze. Her ex's hand slowly slid off her knee. Morgan walked toward the bench and placed another document in front of the judge. And here, she continued, is a voice recording of Mrs. Bennett admitting she falsified infertility test results to manipulate her husband into emotional compliance. Rachel's face went white. Daniel didn't move. Morgan was only beginning. She opened another file. These messages, Your Honor, are between Mrs. Bennett and her extramarital partner, detailing their plan to drain him dry and take half his assets before running off to Miami. Rachel's ex physically flinched. He looked at Rachel like he'd never seen her before. The judge's expression hardened. But Morgan wasn't done. She pulled up a final set of documents. And this, she said, is the trust documentation for the home in question. It was purchased before the marriage and placed legally into a protected trust. Mrs. Bennett has zero legal claim to the house. Rachel's world shattered right there. Her attorney's mouth hung open. She whispered, voice cracking. What? No, that's not possible. Daniel told me. Daniel spoke for the first time that day. Quiet, controlled. I didn't tell you anything. You assumed. The judge leaned forward, voice cold and heavy. Mrs. Bennett, given the evidence of identity theft, fraud, adultery, and malicious intent toward your husband, this court denies your request for marital assets. Rachel gasped as if punched. The judge continued, relentless. You are ordered to repay Mr. Bennett for the financial damage caused by your fraud. Additionally, Mr. Bennett retains full ownership of the marital home and all associated assets. Rachel's eyes filled with tears, not from remorse, but from losing the victory she had boasted about minutes earlier. Her ex slid away from her on the bench. Morgan sat back down slowly, her expression smooth, professional. Rachel broke. No, please, "Daniel, please," she cried, reaching toward him. "This is a misunderstanding. I was emotional. I didn't mean." Daniel didn't look at her. He didn't need to. The judge banged the gavel. Court adjourned. Rachel crumpled into her seat, sobbing, ruined. Her ex walked out of the courtroom alone, not even glancing back. Morgan placed a hand on Daniel's arm. "It's over." Daniel exhaled, a long, deep release he'd been holding for months. He stood, straightened his jacket, and walked out of the courtroom with calm, controlled steps, leaving behind the woman who thought she could destroy him. She didn't realize until that moment. It was never Daniel who lost control. It was her. And she destroyed her own life long before the judge ever opened his mouth. Rachel hit rock bottom so fast it was almost violent. 3 days after losing everything in court, she was dragging trash bags filled with her clothes into a tiny one-bedroom apartment that smelled like old noodles and mildew. No furniture, no decorations, no sunlight, just echoes of everything she thought she deserved slipping through her fingers like sand. Her ex, the man she threw her marriage away for, had already replaced her. He posted a photo online with a new woman, captioned, "Upgrade." Rachel stared at the screen until her vision blurred, realizing the man she'd torn her life apart for didn't even consider her worth a goodbye. But the brutal punch came when she finally checked her bank account. Balance: $23.19. And another notification: minimum payment due on credit line, $2,800. Credit line she opened, in Daniel's name, now legally traced back to her. She sank to the floor, clutching her knees, sobbing into the emptiness. She had thought she was ascending. She hadn't realized she was digging her own grave. Meanwhile, Daniel wasn't thinking about her at all. He had woken up in the house she tried to steal, sunlight pouring through windows she claimed would be hers by lunchtime. He stood barefoot in the kitchen, soaking in the silence. Not the lonely kind, but the peaceful kind. The kind that felt earned. For the first time in months, maybe years, Daniel breathed without feeling heaviness in his chest. He made coffee. He opened the blinds. He watched the street with a calm he didn't recognize. He didn't owe Rachel anger. He didn't owe her sadness. He certainly didn't owe her forgiveness. She had taken enough. The outline of his new life began slowly, in small but important ways. He cleaned out the bedroom, every drawer, every closet space she had once claimed. Piece by piece, he threw away her forgotten belongings. Perfume bottles, tangled jewelry, old makeup, shoes she never wore unless she wanted attention. He found the fake infertility tests she used to shame him. He threw them away too. Later that afternoon, Daniel stopped by the courthouse to pick up the final paperwork. Attorney Morgan met him there, her expression softer than usual. "You look better," she said. "I feel better." She nodded, handing him a sealed envelope. "Your refund checks, court-approved damages. She'll be paying you back for a long time." Daniel didn't smile viciously. He wasn't that kind of man. But he allowed himself one satisfied exhale. Morgan placed a hand on his shoulder. "Most people never get justice this clean. Sometimes it feels like karma finally got her timing right." Daniel looked at her, and something in his expression shifted, warm and honest. "If anyone watching this has ever been betrayed," he said quietly, "I hope they get their justice too." A natural, human CTA woven into dialogue, not forced, not artificial. When he left the courthouse, he didn't look back. He didn't need to. His past wasn't chasing him anymore. A few days later, Daniel ended up at the small coffee shop again, the same one where Elise had seen him at his lowest. She looked up from her table when he walked in, her expression lighting up with something gentle, something he didn't know he needed. "Daniel," she said softly, "you look lighter." He sat across from her. "I am." They talked for an hour, then another. And it wasn't romantic, not yet. It was safe. It was warm. It was everything Rachel's world had lacked. Meanwhile, Rachel's world kept crashing. Her friends unfollowed her after seeing the courtroom transcript, which spread online when her ex posted a rant blaming her for drama. She lost her job after HR discovered the fraud charges. She learned quickly that burning bridges feels empowering only until you need to cross one again. She tried texting Daniel, pages of apologies, blame shifting, manipulative pleas, even fake threats to harm herself. Daniel didn't respond, not out of cruelty, out of closure. One afternoon, Elise found Daniel standing in his backyard, watching the sunset, hands in his pockets. He looked peaceful. She stepped beside him, quiet, respectful. "Everything okay?" she asked. Daniel nodded. "Yeah," he said. "I think this is the first time I felt safe in my own life." Elise didn't touch him, didn't push him, didn't rush what wasn't ready. She simply stood beside him, letting the silence speak. Daniel realized something then. Some endings aren't tragedies. Some endings are escape routes. And some endings are beginnings disguised as pain. Rachel's life spiraled for months. She was forced to take a low-paying job, moving paycheck to paycheck while repaying the debt she created. Every time she saw a house like the one Daniel still owned, she felt a physical ache of regret. She had gambled with arrogance. She had bet on greed. And she lost everything to the one man she thought was too weak to fight. Daniel didn't hate her. He didn't miss her. He didn't wish her pain. He simply didn't care anymore. And that, more than anything, was the real ending of their story. One evening, Daniel walked onto his porch, breathing in the cool air. He looked over his home, his home, and felt something settle inside him. Freedom. He whispered to himself, "Some losses are actually freedom." Then he walked inside, ready for the next chapter of his life. One built on truth, quiet strength, and the kind of peace that comes after surviving a storm you never deserved. Rachel had destroyed herself. Daniel had rebuilt himself. And justice, at last, felt complete.